What if I told you the most painful breakup you'll ever experience doesn't end with a goodbye, but with silence? No closure, no last words. Just a woman who stops chasing, stops calling, stops probing, and vanishes into herself. And you're left standing in the echo of everything you didn't say, everything you didn't do, and everything she stopped waiting for. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's about what he thinks when she refuses to chase. When the woman who once gave endlessly chooses finally to give to herself. Because here's the truth no one is saying out loud. Most men don't realize what they had until the silence becomes unbearable. Not the silence between two people, but the silence inside themselves when the game ends and love is no longer waiting at the other end of the phone. You think you've heard this before. You haven't. This isn't about cliches. This is about patterns, psychology, power. This is about how emotional immaturity disguises itself as detachment and how women are conditioned to chase love that doesn't know how to stay. And when she finally stops, when she reclaims her worth without a fight, everything changes. Stay with me until the end of this video because we're going deeper than you've ever gone before. We're peeling back the layers of silence, of denial, of love that was real but not reciprocal. And when we get to the end, you won't just understand why she stopped chasing. You'll understand why you should have stopped making her. You're not ready for this truth. But that's exactly why you need to hear it. Keep watching. Certainly, here is a 500-word expanded segment of key point wonderies from the speech, What He Thinks When She Refuses to Chase, written to flow as part of the larger speech. The tone mirrors Esther Perel's style, intellectually grounded, psychologically rich, and emotionally resonant. At first, nothing seems different. She stops calling, but he tells himself she's just busy. She doesn't double text, doesn't ask when he's free again, doesn't reach out with late-night check-ins. And still, notice, because when someone has always made the effort, their absence doesn't register as change. It registers as space. And space, to the untrained mind, feels like freedom. But here's the thing, freedom isn't always liberation. Sometimes it's the echo chamber you didn't know you built around your own emotional immaturity. When she goes quiet, it's not to manipulate. It's not a game, not a test. It's the result of exhaustion, emotional, mental, and spiritual. She simply has nothing left to give that won't betray herself in the process. And that's silence. It's not passive, it's not empty, it's allowed, it's full of every time she waited for him to initiate a real conversation. Every moment she pretended to be cool with ambiguity. Every time she made excuses for his lack of presence. It is the sound of years of internal noise finally going quiet. Not because it resolved, but because she chose herself instead. Men are often socialized to interpret absence as a void to be filled later when convenient. They assume the door will remain open, that the woman will still be there when they decide to feel. But what they rarely understand is that a woman doesn't leave all at once. She leaves in stages, in shifts, in size. She disappears in the pauses between texts, in the softening of her tone, in the growing length of silence after good night. He doesn't notice the change because he never trained himself to listen to subtleties. He was taught to chase loud, dramatic exits, doors slamming, tears, ultimatums. But emotionally mature women don't always exit in chaos. They exit in clarity. And by the time he realizes the silence isn't just distance, it's finality, she's already returned home to herself. She's not waiting on a reaction. She's no longer soothing her anxiety with his potential. She's not angry anymore. She's simply done. Because silence isn't the absence of feeling. It's the space where feeling has nowhere left to go. It's a closing of the emotional account. By the time he starts to feel the discomfort of her silence, she has already made peace with the version of herself that kept chasing. And from that moment on, it's not her silence that's haunting. It's his own inner voice asking, why didn't I notice when she stopped speaking to me from love and started speaking through absence? The truth is, silence is not a punishment. It is a boundary that says, you no longer have access to me in the way you used to. And when a woman goes quiet, not out of strategy, but out of self-respect, it is already too late to ask, what happened? Because what happened was this: she stopped chasing and started listening to herself. Of course, here's a 500-word expansion of key point 2 from the same speech, integrating emotional depth, psychological insight, and a clear, grounded tone inspired by Esther Perel. This segment flows as part of the full narrative and deepens the message around why her walking away isn't about punishment. It's about self-respect. There's a common misunderstanding, one that reveals far more about how we view women than we care to admit. When a woman walks away, we often assume it's a move designed to teach him a lesson, a punishment, a ploy for attention, something reactive. But here's the truth: it's none of those things. It's not about revenge. It's not even about him. It's about her finally refusing to abandon herself in the name of keeping someone else comfortable. Walking away isn't always loud. It doesn't always look like blocked numbers and angry texts. Sometimes it's the quietest decision she's ever made. And yet, it's the most powerful. Because walking away, when you still care, when part of you still hopes, is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It's the moment she stops asking, how do I make him stay? And starts asking, why do I keep betraying myself to be chosen? You see, emotional labor is invisible until it's gone. No one sees the 1,000 little moments she compromises, bends, silences herself to preserve the connection. She accepts vague answers, inconsistent effort, and the bare minimum, not because she doesn't know she deserves more, but because something in her still believes that if she's patient enough, soft enough, low maintenance enough, he'll see her. But eventually something inside her breaks. Or maybe, finally, it clicks. She realizes she's become the only one working to keep the relationship alive. She's initiating the conversations, repairing the disconnections, over-explaining her needs just to be met with silence or defensiveness. And after a while, that realization turns into grief. Not for the relationship, but for the version of herself that kept showing up in a space where she was being emotionally starved. That's when it happens. Not in a dramatic moment, but in the stillness of her own clarity. She stops reaching, not because she's angry, but because she's done pleading. Not because she's heartless, but because she finally heard her own heart breaking. It's not punishment, it's preservation. Because love that requires self-erasure isn't love, it's performance. And what she's walking away from is not just a him. She's walking away from the habit of negotiating her worth. There is no victory in being the one who stays the longest in dysfunction. There is only depletion. So when a woman leaves, understand that she didn't give up on him. She gave back to herself. And by the time he realizes it wasn't a game, that it was grace she was extending all along, she's already free. The truth is, she left because staying would have meant betraying herself one more time, and she finally decided she was no longer available for her own abandonment. Certainly. Here's a 500-word expansion of key point 3 from the ongoing speech, what he thinks when she refuses to chase. Written in a tone that is psychologically rich, emotionally intelligent, and intellectually grounded in the voice and depth of Esther Perel. What most people don't realize is this: the pain doesn't hit him when she walks away. It hits when he realizes she was a real. And he wasn't ready for real. You see, many men are taught how to pursue a woman's body, but very few are ever taught how to receive a woman's emotional presence. And this isn't about blame. It's about programming, cultural inheritance, psychological wiring. From a young age, boys are often taught to see vulnerability as weakness. They're praised for detachment, rewarded for stoicism, conditioned to believe that needing connection, truly needing it, is unmanly or worse, unsafe. So what do? They perform. They learn how to be charming, not intimate. They learn how to attract attention, not how to hold space. They learn how to keep things light, avoid depth, and master the art of almost committing, just enough to keep her close, never enough to risk being fully seen. But when a woman shows up with real emotional intimacy, When she offers softness, consistency, and presence, it confuses him. Not because he doesn't want it, but because he doesn't know what to do with it. Her love doesn't require him to perform, and that's terrifying. Because performance is all he's ever known. So he retreats, he questions it. He says, she's too intense. She's too emotional. I need space. Not because she's wrong, but because he doesn't yet have the internal structure to hold the weight of something real. And the tragedy, by the time he begins to understand what she was offering, by the time he realizes that her love wasn't drama, it was depth, she's already gone. Because no woman will keep pouring herself into a connection that makes her feel like a burden. No woman will keep offering real when it's met with half presence. And so he's left in the ruins of what could have been, not because she vanished, but because he never arrived. This is where the grief begins. Not just grief for losing her, but grief for every moment he wasn't able to meet her as he truly is, without armor, without avoidance. It's not heartbreak. It's self-recognition. He realizes he didn't lose her because she stopped loving him. He lost her because she kept loving him in ways he didn't yet believe he deserved. And that's the cost of emotional unavailability. It doesn't just block connection, it delays self-awareness, until the one who saw you clearly is no longer there to reflect you back to yourself. So when a man finally feels the absence of the woman who once stayed, it's not the silence that haunts him. It's the realization that she was never asking for too much. She was offering what he never learned how to receive. And by the time he's ready to open, she's already moved on to someone who doesn't flinch when love looks him in the eye. Absolutely. Here's a 500-word expansion of key point 4 he dies from the same speech. What he thinks when she refuses to chase. This final segment closes the arc, maintaining Esther Perel's psychologically rich tone, direct, reflective, and emotionally intelligent, while pushing the audience to a deeper reckoning. When a woman walks away, it's easy to assume she's just moved on to someone else. That's the story many people tell themselves. That she found another man, that someone else took her place. But what most fail to realize is that the person she moved on to was herself. She didn't just leave him. She left the version of herself who kept trying to prove she was worthy of being chosen. And that shift from chasing love to choosing self is not some Instagram cliché, it's a psychological rebirth. Because most women aren't taught how to leave. They're taught how to hold on, how to fix, how to shrink, how to wait. They are trained quietly and consistently to tether their value to someone else's willingness to stay. So when she finally steps away, it's not impulsive, it's not cold. It's the result of a slow, internal awakening. She doesn't walk away out of bitterness. She walks away because something inside her finally says, I miss me. You have to understand this. She didn't stop loving him first. She stopped abandoning herself to keep that love alive. She stopped ignoring her own needs just to avoid conflict. She stopped over explaining her boundaries to someone who never intended to respect them. That kind of decision doesn't happen in one moment. It happens after 1,000 silent compromises. It happens after years of telling herself, it's okay, I'll just be patient a little longer. But eventually something changes. Not in the relationship, in her identity. She remembers the woman she was before she started questioning her worth, before she started waiting for someone else to name her value. That's the real moment he loses her. Not when she leaves, but when she stops needing him to see her. Because now she sees herself. And that is the moment she becomes powerful, not because she's hard or guarded or emotionally distant, but because she's no longer outsourcing her sense of belonging. She doesn't need to chase. She doesn't need to prove. She doesn't need to convince anyone that she's worthy of love that shows up. And that's where the story ends for him. Not with a dramatic goodbye, but with a quiet realization she's gone. Not to someone else, but back to the place inside herself where she always belonged. And maybe the greatest heartbreak isn't that she walked away, it's that she never needed to. She just needed to remember who she was before she started chasing someone who couldn't see her. So here's the truth. She didn't stop because she stopped caring. She stopped because she finally did.